pitch perfect whip. Grip so tight in your shoulders. Bite down with the force of holding in. Bound by immortal desire. So you'll be the king. Sure as the shape you're in. Until you cut loose. It's your turn. You wanna know, but you don't. Until you cut loose. Yeah. What's happening? You better know. Distance, you keep it far away. Gravity can't hold you safe. Hey, who's gonna save you from the deep unknown? Ooh, but don't look any further, further, further. Oh, when you're gone again, you can't breathe. The words are caught beneath what's said. Pulling at something.
Welcome to the second annual Women in Music and Arts Conference, hosted by Axé WorldFest. I'm Claudia Baladelli, co-founder and artistic director of our organization. I'm coming to you today from the unceded territories of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. We at Axé WorldFest wish to show respect to and recognize the first peoples and original custodians of the land on which we live and work. Right now, I am so delighted to welcome you to a captivating conversation. Our first session of the day features music from Sarah Kuruchich, an indigenous singer, songwriter from Guatemala. The second session features a lively conversation with Teresa Lavesseur of Folk Alliance International with women from all around the world. Finally, stay tuned as Shoshona Kish and Iskwe have fun playing with their Zoom backgrounds and virtual mustaches while discussing social media stresses, contributions, collaborations, and creativity. Enjoy!
Ikulukhong ni Malakho Tsilivach, Ginub Isara Kuruchich, Gin Archishot, Komalapa, Babe Ishimulev, Nitipach, Nipishang, Tapish, the Chingning Alarsach, the Num Rukir, the Koronoher, the Katinamit, Chukar, Irika, Kol, the Kachap Eldoch, Ishokita Mayap. Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Kruchich. I'm a singer-songwriter from Comalapa, Guatemala. I'm an indigenous woman and I believe in the powerful for the music to change everything, the inequalities in the world, and I'm very happy because I'm shared with you these songs with all my heart. Quiero agradecerles profundamente por la invitación a participar con ustedes en el Women in Music and Arts. Es una verdadera alegría poder compartir estas canciones que han sido inspiradas en la fuerza de las mujeres indígenas, de todos los pueblos, no solamente de Guatemala, sino que de todos los pueblos del mundo. Creo profundamente en que la música puede generar una articulación muy grande y muy maravillosa también desde su ternura, desde su fuerza, desde su sentido aguerrido para poder generar transformaciones y sobre todo para poder construir entornos, contextos con dignidad para nuestras existencias, para nuestras memorias individuales y colectivas. Así que estas canciones con mucho amor para cada una y cada uno de ustedes, creemos profundamente que a través de la palabra podemos dignificar y traer a la memoria también a la palabra, la esencia y toda la sabiduría de nuestras abuelas y de nuestros abuelos. Espero y estoy con mucha esperanza de poder conocer el territorio de ustedes, de poder conocer y compartir también con hermanas y hermanos indígenas de Canadá. Y mientras tanto, un fuerte, fuerte abrazo a su corazón, a su espíritu. Nos vemos muy pronto y estas canciones para ustedes.
Kachalas Mahon chekota pevabe Vakamingi ko parukush kar parukush ulev Kharia kuchiat kovi Ninkutu kacheka tu pikapashkin chimahumpe shkat kamestach chimahumpe shkat kamestach Todos los que te han visto sonreír, manos que han trabajado a tu lado, y el ejemplo que dejaron tus pasos, siempre será semillas de nuestra historia. Junto al espíritu de bosques y ríos brotará por siempre. Hija de la tierra.
Janila Matios Chirojonal. Ni malak irchijojonal, Janila, ning Matios Chirarik Aslen, Chirarik Ojlen, Roma, Nikiyak Chirikap Notunri, Richin Yohnimak Richin Yohkikot. ¿Qué tal a todas y a todos? Que quiero compartirles que estoy muy emocionada, estoy muy feliz de poder cantarles estas canciones que han nacido también desde el corazón de las comunidades. Estoy muy feliz y también muy honrada de poder estar con grandes músicas y con grandes músicos como Chejo Enríquez, como Tucumba Lam, como Hilda López, y estamos aquí en este teatro tan hermoso y tan maravilloso de Xela Jujunoj, aquí en Guatemala, con estas canciones, con todo el agradecimiento, como una ofrenda también a su camino y a su existir. Matios Kaslen, como todas las otras canciones, para ustedes. Sekernan, sekertat, sekerrachuler, sekeryam. Shukas techwakamin tikats eta, nkotzihan rubech rikich. Matios Kaslen, Matios Rachulev, Matios Kaslen, Matios Rachulev, Janila Matios. Shukas techwakamin tikabak ashach, kakibish, achshika chikobi, dikhana rumaloni krikaker. Matios Kaslen, Matios Rachulev, Matios Kaslen, Matios Rachulev, Janila Matios. Matios Kaslen, Matios Rachulev, Matios Kaslen, Matios Rachulev, Janila Matios, Janila Matios, Janila Matios, Janila Matios. Janila Matios, Chijujonal, Chirerikush, Chirerik Ojlen, Chirerik Aslen. Muchísimas gracias. Esta canción se llama Matios Kaslen y es un agradecimiento en mi idioma cachiquel, porque también los idiomas han sido una resistencia, un acto de amor también de todos los pueblos originarios. Y bueno, ahora esta siguiente canción, porque también en nuestro camino tenemos que recordar mucho la esencia y el espíritu de nuestros ancestros, porque en el tiempo en el que estamos viviendo también hay que reflexionar mucho, hay que pensar mucho en este camino, la reconstrucción, el resembrar también, y lo podemos hacer, por supuesto, siempre de la mano, como nos han enseñado los pueblos originarios, de la mano de nuestras abuelas y de nuestros abuelos. Debajo de la noche ceniza ibas vos,
volando de palo en palo, abrazando el rojo, amarillo, negro y blanco maíz. Escuché, mi mamá decía, bajo la luna la voz del tucur se oía. Mensajero de estrellas de tiempo, cantor de abuelos de niebla. Ay, 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 hoy escuché a alguien cantar. Me dijeron que era el viento, yo sabía que eras vos. Ay, 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 hoy escuché a alguien cantar. Me dijeron que era el viento, yo sabía que eras vos. Debajo de la noche ceniza ibas vos, volando de palo en palo, abrazando el rojo, amarillo, negro y blanco maíz. Escuché, mi mamá decía, bajo la luna la voz del tucur se oía. Escuché, mi mamá decía, bajo la luna la voz del tucur se oía. Muchísimas gracias. Quiero contarles que esta siguiente canción que les queremos compartir es la primera vez que la vamos a cantar, que la vamos a tocar juntos, y estoy muy feliz de poder hacerlo con ustedes porque, bueno, esta canción nació hace aproximadamente 2 meses, pues ya estábamos en este tiempo de pandemia, pero es una manera de revisitar también una leyenda que se llama la ciguanaba, como una manera también de romper el silencio y de luchar juntas y juntos contra todas las manifestaciones violentas hacia las mujeres. Así que la ciguanaba para todas y para todos ustedes. Con cabellos largos, noche de luna, nueva creciente, llena menguante. Ella se mostró. Algunos por los pueblos la ven caminar, han visto su rostro, cicatrizado está. Hay quienes le temen, le creen sobrenatural, pero su historia les quiero contar. Obligada a casarse con un tipo de mayor edad que creía que las mujeres se deben dominar y que sus cuerpos son un objeto sexual. Pero ella huyó porque sabía que su cuerpo solo a ella pertenecía, nadie golpearla debía, su vida es de ella y de nadie más. Recorre las calles y con huipiles blancos bajo la luna y el sol va caminando, y su palabra y su mirada con fuerza de bosque y de montaña para nunca más callar. Le llaman la ciguanaba, le llaman bruja, le llaman animal, porque lucha contra las violencias del sistema patriarcal. Recorre las calles y con huipiles blancos bajo la luna y el sol va caminando, y su palabra y su mirada con fuerza de bosque y de montaña para nunca más callar. Le llaman la ciguanaba, le llaman bruja, le llaman animal, porque lucha por las mujeres y su dignidad. Janta pekashti samech bakivi konochel ri'ishoki shkeruto shkerukor. Ella no va a parar de caminar, trae consigo la fuerza de los barrancos y la libertad. Contribuye a sembrar, a sembrar.
Muchísimas gracias por acompañarnos aquí en este mismo lugar, en este mismo momento, con sus energías, con su espíritu, por lograr esta conexión tan hermosa entre todas las comunidades. Muchísimas gracias a ustedes por acompañarnos siempre. Muchísimas gracias a la Seattle International Foundation. Muchas gracias a Epic Show. Muchísimas gracias también a Tejiendo Sonidos, a la Municipalidad de Quetzaltenango por permitirnos cantarles de este lugar tan maravilloso y tan emblemático de Quetzaltenango. Muchísimas gracias de nuevo. Un abrazo muy fuerte a su corazón.
Paulef chukakaj ukumas no shajorria riqaq. En los suelos y los cielos, poco más danza agua y fuego, danza el árbol con el viento. Espiral de tiempo. De la raíz de la tierra crecen los versos que entintan esperanza. La abuela Shmukanek teje melodías al alma, sin color ni distinción. Los pueblos bailan y cantan. Somos viento, somos sol y sueños multicolores. Somos este, norte, sur y oeste. Somos historia, lienzo y canción. Escribimos el tiempo junto a voces y miradas. Nuestros sueños navegan bajo el sol.
Welcome, everybody, to this panel entitled Women of the World, Mujeres del Mundo, Donne del Mundo. I am so excited to be here for this panel. I'm going to moderate this panel, which is presented by Axé WorldFest as part of their conference called Women in Music and Arts, and it's co-presented by my pals over at Global Toronto. I'm joined by 5 amazing women from all over the world, and I think rather than me introduce each one and tell you about them, I'll get each person to introduce themselves by answering the following question. They'll say their name, where they're living, and what inspired them to do what they do or to found the organization that they work for. So a bit of an intro question, and let's go in last name alphabetical order. So all the way from Mexico. Let's start with Sonia Aviles. Welcome, Sonia.
Thank you. Thanks for invitation. Hello, women around the world. My name is Sonia. I was born in Mexico City. I'm living in Mexico City too. And my organization is Encuentro Iberoamericano de Mujeres en la Industria Musical. And now we are so happy because it's the second edition. And this is a efforts for many women and men. And I'm so happy to stay here.
Excellent. Welcome, Sonia. Okay, let us go take a flight across the Atlantic Ocean all the way up to Norway to meet someone who was born in Colombia but is living in Oslo, Laura Camacho Salgado. Hello, Laura.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me here in Axé Fest and Global Toronto. Yes, my name is Laura, born and raised in Colombia. I have been living in Europe for the last 12 years and live based in Oslo for the last 7 years. I'm working in Oslo World, a music festival that it was founded in 1994. And then what inspired me to be here? Well, I feel the importance of having music and art as a transformative tool for change. And Oslo World is an organization that, for me, is creating that change, being through the music festival or the projects with the festivals in the refugee center, or key change as a gender equality 50-50 initiative in Europe. So it's this idea of having a space in which music can transform and create, a better world, if it sounds a little bit too much. And yeah, that's it for now.
That is an awesome answer. And it's interesting because I think we probably all feel that way, that we're using music as a tool to create the world that we want to see. Okay, we're getting back on that plane, everybody. Going back across the Atlantic, all the way to Paraguay, where we will meet my friend who I was on another panel with a while ago, Amanda Chamorro, who's living in Paraguay. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Trias. It's lovely to see you again. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. My name is Amanda Chamorro, as Tricia said, and I am a musician and a graphic designer and certified creator coach, and I am co-founder of Mujeres Haciendo Eco. It's the first directory of women in the Paraguayan music industry. And what inspired me to be here today, wow, it's a wild story. And I was trained as a flutist in academic environment, and I saw a quick end in my career when I started university. But years later, I reconnected with music from other styles and other roles. And being there, I saw that there were a lot of women that they knew each other, that were struggling alone in a heavily male environments. And I saw that if they meet each other, inspire each other, collaborate, we could forge our way together and strengthen our collective as women in music industry. And my partner, Pamela Ruiz Diaz, saw the same. So we connect and found together in 2020 Mujeres Haciendo Eco, the first directory of women in Paraguayan music industry. We were proud of it. So it's amazing to be here sharing this project with all of us and putting Paraguay in the map. So thank you all.
Welcome, Amanda. Love it. Strengthening our collective voice. Probably another reason everybody's doing what they do. Okay, we're heading straight up Paraguay to Toronto, where my dear old friend, who I've known for 20 plus years, Kristen Gelfand. Hello, friend. How are you today?
I'm well. Thank you so much, Tressa. It's so amazing to be here and to see you, and to see some familiar faces and new faces here as well. Yes, I am Kristen Gelfand, coming to you from Toronto, Canada. And the organization I represent is Umanota Culture. We're mainly a presenting company. We have a couple of festivals here in Toronto. One of them is called Mixto, another is called the Geary Art Crawl, which we just inaugurated last year. And besides that, we also work on some artist development and booking. We work mainly with Brazilian and South American artists traditionally, but we're open to music from all over the world. And what inspired me particularly, I think, in addition to what a lot of other people have said, being a positive force for change, adding more women's voices to this industry. But a big thing for me was also just the opportunity to create these joyful and ecstatic experiences through music for people, through our festivals and presentations. And I think actually that can be such an important force for change in itself, just through that experience of music and through that communication of music, DJ, dance floor. So yeah, that's what inspired me to get into this. Back when I first met Tressa a long time ago, before Umanata, when it was, so.
Well, thank you for that beautiful answer, Joy. It's so easy to forget that that's the fundamental feeling that we want to have when we're together gathering with music. So thank you for that wonderful reminder. Okay, you ready for our last leg of the trip? Now we're getting on the plane from Toronto. We're going somewhere much, much less snowy. Maybe, I don't know, actually. Torino has snow because the Olympics were there once upon a time. So maybe I'm wrong. Is it snowing? Valentina Zanelli, how is it where you are and what brings you here today?
Hello everyone. It's not snowy, but it's cold today. We have the mountains here, but it's nice. It's a nice place. So yeah, hello everyone. I'm Valentina Zanelli. I'm from Italy. I live in Turin and I work both in Milan and Turin. What brings me here? I mean, what's my inspiration for what I'm doing in what I do here is actually the experience, the life experience I got traveling around and living in Canada a long time, and then coming back home because I saw that the system and the environment here was still very patriarchal, not very diverse, and concepts and topics that I used to see every day and talk about every day in Canada, North America, such as gender inclusion, diversity, gender equality. Here, we're not even taking into consideration. So what I'm doing now, working for the cultural centers I work with and programming for them, is exactly this, is giving space and trying to make space and give opportunities to artists that don't have it right now, that are not included in the general cultural program of the cities, to actually be able to be present on stage. So it's a hard work, but I'm very happy to do that. And I can see that it's slowly making a change. So it's good.
Thank you for that. And it's interesting to hear so many people identify that part of their work and part of what they want to do is bring people together, but also to remove obstacles for people who are facing challenges or barriers or difficulties in being truly included and coming to the center of the music scene wherever you are. So this leads us to our next question and our next section of the conversation. And the next section of the conversation is around the challenges and the opportunities and the collaborations. So I'll start with this question. It's a two-parter, which is what obstacles were in your way when you started? So Valentina was just talking about that she started her work because she noticed that there was an obstacle for women in the culture in Italy to really come to the center of the music industry. And what's in your way now? Like, we know that obstacles are in the way for other people, but what's in your way? What was in your way before that you've moved? And what's in your way now? And Valentina, I wonder if you want to start. We'll go the other way around.
I wasn't ready for that, but yes. Let's do this. No, it's very interesting. It's very interesting to see. I mean, in my experience right now is I can say like a two-way obstacle. I don't know if I can be clear with that. Like it's an inside the organization, the first obstacle, because you come as a leading woman and all the males working around you, they just don't accept it. And or they feel intimidated, or you're taking too much space. So you need, to minimize yourself for that. And that's something that actually affects you, like your everyday work, until you accept that it's not on you that they are intimidated, because you are not intimidating, they are intimidated, which is something different. And on the other side, from the outside, right, like changing the way you see the things how they used to be, and actually bringing a new vision, trying to educate the audience somehow, educate the collaborators as well, to a new way of thinking, a new way of presenting. And after the first moment of resistance, then I could see that they were getting on board more, I could see that they were feeling no more excluded, but more included, more involved. They got more excited. So the most beautiful example I have is, for example, I mean, we are working with different other cultural organizations in the same area for this program. And one of the closest partners I wanted to have is led by a woman that she's been in the territory for a long time. And that's from where I had the most resistance. She didn't want to. But then because I don't know why, maybe she was feeling like I invaded or I don't know. But then we had just this very nice and clear conversation. From there on, we cleared the air, and now she's the best partner I can have, you know. So I think that's part of our culture as women, how we grow up, how we are educated, that we have to be in competition between us to get someone else's attention, while at the end, when we realize by ourselves that we are just fine as we are and we are stronger together, that's where the magic happens and we are unstoppable.
I love it. I'm here for this, Valentina. I'm just here for unstoppable togetherness. But I understand what you mean about being against each other. That's what in a system that oppresses a group of people, one of the ways that they do it most effectively is by putting those people against each other. Right?
Yeah.
I wonder, sorry, Kristen, I'm going to skip you, but it's making me think about Amanda and the work that you're doing, which you talked so much about collaboration and collaboration among women. Do you want to respond or say anything about what you heard Valentina say, Amanda?
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. You read my mind because I felt so inspired what Valentina was sharing, because I do believe as a coach, as a creator coach, working with the art and the creativity, I believe in the power of conversations. And here in Paraguay, we do need to talk more with each other. We are too separated, and there is this position within women and between women and men. And okay, men are the ones that are right now in power, and they know each other. And we know that in the music industry is one of the most powerful tools are the net, they're working, what we're doing here, to know each other, to collaborate, to give space. And if we are all enemies, what can be built? Because we have something bigger, and it's an absent state. The government is not there for us. We are all the same under the state as artists, and not only in the music industry, but all the culture. But we're fighting each other. We don't need to fight each other. We need to collaborate, to get together, to integrate ourselves. I do believe strongly in the power of integration and collaboration. And we have to start within ourselves, women, but then we have to start working with men as well, and teaching the audience, teaching everyone how to build a new industry, how to build something more human. And that's with all the arts, and that is what's going to change our reality. No, if we are going to keep waiting for the government to do what they have to do and protect culture, we are going to keep being the same or even in a worse condition. So I do believe in the power of conversations, and I'm being so inspired having these conversations. I do hope we can start having more conversations and changing our minds in Paraguay as well. So we are a little behind, but I'm getting a lot inspired to keep building, and I am hopeful. So thank you so much,
Amanda,
for
that's a
listening to me.
beautiful answer. Believing in the strength of collaboration and communication and conversation, which makes me think about, and now I'm gonna try Spanish, everybody. Wish me luck. Because it makes me think about the title of Sonia Aviles's organization, which is Encuentro Iberoamericano de Mujeres en la Industria Musical. Sorry. But the first word of that is encuentro, which is to meet each other, to encounter each other. And so, Sonia, like, tell us about the name of your organization, because Iberoamericana is also very big category, many, 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 many countries. So what led you to this name, and what do you have to say about collaboration amongst women or beyond?
Well, the name of this organization, it's the first time it's a big challenge for Mexico, for us, because Mexico in America Latina and in the world represent a territory, the most important territory for talents, not only for Mexican talents, because normally we receive a lot of groups for many countries in Mexico all year. And we have a lot of ideas and kinds of thinking. It's very difficult to state it in the same way. And the difference, not for if you are man or woman, and to do a team for this industry, it's so difficult in Mexico. And this challenge, el encuentro, in 2019, it was the first time to know what do you do, the women's in Mexico, because normally we know about the festivals or normally festivals, but we don't know what happened behind the festivals, behind the concerts. And it was a time, and the challenge is we meet for the passion for to do the music in the show lives. This is the first challenge, but also we know more, not problems, more challenge during this way. Well, I'm sorry, my English, I'm so nervous because
No problem.
my English is not my language, and we don't practice and for a long time.
Sonia, here is what I would like to say about your English. If you have an idea that is so big that you need to say it in Spanish, I'm making a decision here on behalf of everybody else. Just go ahead and say it in Spanish, and we'll make sure that we have a translation available. We'll put some subtitles on it, something. I don't know. But don't feel, we're all here to remove the barrier, to take the barrier away. So if that's the barrier, just get it out of the way. We'll figure it out. And you could also put it in the chat. I will translate in my Google Translate. I've got it on my other computer. But you know, Sonia, it's interesting that you're talking about la cultura mexicana, because each place that we're all coming from different places today, and each place has a very unique culture, and a culture that affects all different groups in different ways. And so far we've spoken in this question, Valentina is an Italian living in Italy. Amanda is Paraguay living in Paraguay. And you are a Mexican person living in Mexico. But Laura is a Colombian living in Norway. And so I'm interested to hear, Laura, your experience around the obstacles that were inside of you from where you grew up, and then going to a new place with a different set of obstacles and challenges and opportunities. What was that like for you? What have you observed?
Well, that's a great question. And it's, I think the experience of migration and displacement is quite, for me, it's transformative. Talking about privileges and talking about challenges, when you're used to, and networking, and when you're used to be in your country in which more or less, even though there is challenges, you speak the same language, you have your net, you have your family, then you're not aware of how privileged you are in a way. So when you start going in another country and you feel like, yeah, I deserve because I have a degree, you know, these kind of things that you have in your mind, like this idea of you deserve things because you earn it. Well, You just migrate and you realize that, whatever you thought in mind, you have to do it again. And then for me, it's at the same time an experience that, even in my case, it had been a migration that I choose for myself because I was going to study in Europe. But even if it's choose by yourself, you realize that you have to rethink yourself. So it's harsh, but at the same time, it's wonderful, because for me, it was the best way to unlearn a lot of things that I had to rethink about. Talking about, for example, migration, but also talking about gender equality. Latin America is a culture, Colombia at least, in which we internalize a lot of things in which patriarchy is okay. But when you're living there, or at least in my experience, you're like, it's okay, this is being a woman, or this is being, but when you're, and I'm not saying that you cannot do it living there, but when you migrate, just change your uh, all around. So you think, okay, no, maybe this is not has to be like, it's not because you're a woman, or not, it's not because of a man, on not even talking about privilege related to class and ethnicity in countries like Colombia that still has a lot of, I would say, still racism. And so you have all of these kind of things that when you displace yourself, then you have to rethink yourself. And then before going to Oslo World, I was doing a research in migration. So that's my background. And what it strikes me a lot of Oslo World is like in 2014, Oslo World was starting a project called Bornabulag, our neighborhood, in which they start to do festivals in centers for refugees. In a moment that in 2014 and 2015, it was the moment that so-called refugee crisis in Europe. And this, for me, it strikes me like, even though I'm not from a background from music, say, okay, I need to be in an organization in which it's connected to the context it is, to say, okay, this is happening, how we could change, or at least change the narrative, a narrative about migration through art. So what it's a little thing, but it's saying, okay, we are going to build a festival in which people would meet from people and from the refugee centers, and also from the neighborhood around, because it's this kind of being listening to the music, then you feel like the other is not so other. And the connecting with gender equality, it was kind of the same idea, like, okay, we all of us, we have been in talks and saying, okay, gender inequality is a deal in all kind of industry, the music industry, it is. And then again, you come from Colombia, being in Norway, like, no, but in Norway it must be perfect. This kind of idea that you have. Then you arrive to Norway and like, no, actually, no, in Europe, it's still a lot of gender inequality. And we have to do it. And the fact in Norway is not, we have to work not only to book 50-50 gender equality, like lineup, but also in the boards and also in all of that, but not only gender equality, but we have to think about gender minorities, and then we have to think about the unrepresented. And in the case of Norway, no more being here, like, okay, it's about intersectionality. It's not only about booking 50-50 or being in the board 50-50 if you're not taking in consideration all other parts of the society. So yeah, I talk too much, so I don't know.
Your answer is so wide, right? Like your answer just is like, it's a real bird's eye view. It shows that you've gone from one place to another, because you really have had to fly above and kind of see a bunch of things. Same with Valentina. Well, there goes my light. Same with Valentina, where she came to one part of the world, went back to bring a different perspective. But I want to go to Kristen. We're taking turns. Why? Because we're women and that's what we do. Kristen, you're in Toronto and Canada. So there's a perception, just like with Norway, that like everything's great and equal and people come here from all around the world, but it's not equal for women or for people who come from abroad or for people who've been here forever. In fact, there's a lot of things here that are a lot of obstacles that are less obvious, but just as strongly in place. And what I want to know is, sorry for this long-winded question, but Laura was talking about coming from a place, going to another, bringing that place with her, but being in the new place and seeing things, and you are in the place you come from, but you've decided in the place you come from to work within a totally different culture of people who've come from somewhere else. That's your whole deal.
Yeah.
So, like, go. Like,
Okay.
what do you want to say about that?
I'm actually really glad that's where you took the question, because I was so inspired listening to Laura talk, because I think it's true. What we do here and with Umanota is working in these genres that we work with, we're working mainly with diasporic communities. So the majority of people have had that experience, and it's true, we have made that decision to kind of lift up that voice. So hearing that perspective, I think, was really lovely, and I think that it's one that really deserves to be amplified. And you know, that's why we do what we do. I mean, part of it is, you know, just a love for the music forms, but I think there is something really beautiful that happens when these different musical traditions travel, and then they meet other musical traditions, especially in a place like Toronto where it's very, you know, we used to say multicultural, we're shifting now to say intercultural, and because a lot of that is like that interplay between, you know, guitarist who came from Zimbabwe and a singer from Brazil and a drummer from I don't know, Iraq, you know. So I think there's something really beautiful that can happen when these different people can come together in a third place and create new types of music and new experiences for people.
It's so interesting. Like we keep coming back to like interconnected or intersection or intercultural, like encuentro, entro, like between us. I want to do a lightning round. A lightning round, for those of you who have never done one, is super, like, I will ask a question, everyone will have a chance to answer. Quick answer. I want to know, the question is, name a victory that you or your organization have had. A victory. I think that's Victorio. I mean, I could be wrong. Is that right, Amanda? Is victory Victorio? Victorio. Was that Italian? Was that Spanish? I don't know. Victoire en français. Victoire. So I will start with Laura, a victory of your organization. Go. Or of you.
Of the world, I think that we're proud to have been booking 50-50 gender equal lineups. I think it's in the board. So one small victory, and I would say a second one during the pandemic. 2 cases of connecting people. It was when we worked with a lot of different festivals with the Map the World initiative and the Utopian Manifesto, and everything. It was about connecting people. That's it.
Okay, but Laura, before you go, 2 things.
Yeah.
I want you to give the audience and the participants in this conversation a very quick description of what the Utopian Manifesto is. And then I want you to choose who goes next.
Okay, great. The Utopian Manifesto is gather initiative that we are taking with different organizations all around the world, in which we're sitting together and we're writing an action-oriented manifesto in order to put in the cultural sector points, actions, and goals about how we could go further in having a cultural sector without racism, with gender equality, with more diversity, and it's something that we have been writing together with now as over 100 different organizations, in which, for example, Global Toronto is in, and then a different kind of organizers and artists. So yeah, that's it. Really short, and I would give the floor to Amanda.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you. Well, A victory or victoria of our organization. Well, the international recognition and support we're having thanks to that Gina Brobesky from Smart World Music and invited Paraguay to participate in Global Toronto 2021. Wow, it was amazing. Well, very eye-opening for me and for every one of us. And I'm trying to be more present in this conversation, in this conference, so I can kind of in a long path. I want to forge the way for the conversations, important conversations, to keep happening in my country. So this support also and to be seen also inspires us to keep going against all odds, and we truly believe in collective power. So that's a really big victory. So thank you so much. I give the mic to Valentina.
Thank you. So our victory is that tomorrow we inaugurate a new community space in a very peripheric area of the town that will start with 9 days, 9 weekends. And with every weekend, there is going to be like appointments, but I would say there's going to be like 13 shows. Of these 13 shows, 8 are led by women on stage. The others involve conversation exactly with different communities that we bring there, and we make like we let them meet with the local community. So we will touch topics like the diversity in the sense of immigrants community of the areas, LGBTQI community, etc. And head of program, head of communication, and the co-artistic director, we are all women. So, yeah. And I give the word to Sonia.
Listo. Well, I speak in Spanish. La victoria fue reconocer el papel de las mujeres en México, principalmente porque la edición se hizo en México, sobre todo de las mujeres que han estado en México por muchos años y que no les han dado como, no se habían encontrado en un espacio común para platicar sobre todas las cosas que han sucedido en la industria musical, y también conocer qué sucede en América Latina y qué sucede en España, porque México es un territorio que recibe gente del mundo, pero nosotros no nos involucramos regularmente con otros países, y era importante hacer una conexión y un punto de reunión para saber qué sucede, cómo nos podemos conectar y qué podemos empezar a hacer a partir de ese momento. Y sucedieron después otras cosas que no las teníamos consideradas, pero que fueron inspiración, y que muchas mujeres comenzaron a hacer colectivos de distintas áreas, no solo por la música, sino fue como que una explosión, como el motivo catalizador que detonó que sucedieran otras cosas. Y bueno, en este momento no tenemos como un registro de cuántas colectivas han sucedido, pero nos damos cuenta cuando suceden marchas que hay muchas mujeres y también muchos hombres que están aprendiendo a entender, porque no es una acción en donde no solamente se ponga el dedo en la herida, sino también cómo la sanas. Y en ese aspecto hay hombres que después nos preguntaban cómo podían participar, que si era un espacio solo para mujeres, y no, o sea, realmente incluso estamos considerando como hacer una modificación en el nombre, a modo de que no se sienta que es solo para mujeres y por mujeres, sino es una integración de equidad. Conozco, por ejemplo, el manifiesto de Key Change a través de una colega chilena, y me pareció como que es el mensaje que nos resuena, porque finalmente la acción patriarcal no es algo que suceda de los hombres, sino realmente es una construcción que hemos alimentado humanamente por muchas circunstancias y que no nos corresponde más que sanarlo. Es como una herida de infancia que corresponde sanar y es una responsabilidad de todas y todos.
Bravo! Wonderful. I did not understand everything, but I understand many things about that. A catalyzer for change, a catalyzer to inspire others to get together and do collective action. The wonderful answer. I can't wait to read the translation so I can get all of the little nuances. Muchas gracias. And what a good idea to get you to speak about that in Spanish. Kristen, you're up. What is a victory that you have achieved?
So on an organizational level, after being active for over 10 years, we finally made the move in the end of 2019 to become incorporated in Ontario as a not-for-profit. And so that was a big thing, but that's just one small part of the victory. What we did from there is because it opened us up to a lot of other funding opportunities that we previously hadn't been eligible for. We were able to work through, I don't know if you noticed the timing, but it was end of 2019 when we did that. So in 2020, we, when things shut down, we really set to work and we spent so much time grant writing. We were able to grow our organization to a point where now we're spending the amount of money that we're spending on artist fees specifically is something I'm really proud of, because I see that directly. We're kind of in a way a catalyst. We're like doing the work to create these projects and grants so that we can turn around and put the money into the hands of the artists that we want to support here in Toronto and around the world. And we're super proud of that. And that has been a huge victory. And on a personal level, tied into that, up until the beginning of 2020, I also worked, although it was in the music industry, I worked a day job as well as working for this organization. And we've been able to grow so much that now I'm full-time just with the organization where my heart is. So that's a personal victory.
I love your answer for many reasons. But one thing that strikes me is you're talking about using the time. So first of all, you brought up the pandemic, which we've all been through together, and we could talk about that. And
I'm the first one who mentioned it.
It's okay. It's okay. Because it does have to, there is something about this time that has connected us more with each other, that has created more. And I never would have met Amanda to invite her to come to Folk Alliance without having met the folks at Global Toronto, which happened because of the pandemic. I think there's something to be said for that. But what I really want to talk about, and it's not exactly what I thought the direction of this would be, but we're going with it anyway, is you're talking about taking the wealth of time and energy that this period has given you to lift up others and to build community and to nurture and grow something. And that, to me, honestly, I'm going to be political here, it's the opposite of the patriarchy. To nurture and grow something is the matriarchy. That is what women, or yes, I don't want to be half and half binary about gender, but it's definitely the opposite of the patriarchy. I'll just leave it there. So in our last, we have about 15 minutes left of this conversation. So that's like 2-3 minutes each. I want to know, you can answer in any way you'd like, who is not in this conversation that you would like to lift up or tell everybody about? What's another organization or another group or a person that is inspiring you? And or what do you want to grow? beyond what we've already talked about. So yes, sort of pollinating. I don't know the Spanish word for pollinating, but I'm going to look it up right now. And let's start with Amanda. We have not started with you yet.
Thank you, Teresa. Well, I always think about Sorora Musica, that is the first organization that made a festival of entirely of women that lasted several hours, and it was truly amazing. And they're a big organization, but they are more focused on doing the concerts, on the more the production of shows, you could say. So I'm like kind of making networking, connecting with people, knowing them, and I do see a lot of opportunities and potential alliance that they could have. So I really hope they could involve more in this kind of talks and make allegiance, because they have a different focus than we have. We are more in a part of communication and visibility, more a digital link connection thing, because it's a digital directory. We're working towards it, but it's going to be a website, much like Femnoise and other projects like that. And then are way more focusing on like doing concerts, festivals, and even video clips, things like that, because they have recently last year the production of video clips for local artists, and they have an amazing works, and wow, so much creativity, because they're great. They get together not only the musicians but also the people that do video, the people that do graphic design, story, illumination, and we do want to visualize all roles in the music industry. So wow, we can complement each other so well, but we do need to work together more. But I do understand that everyone has its process and its time, and holding space for each other is also respecting their times and their energies, and where everyone is standing, because it's hard to be an artist in Paraguay. So I'm hopeful that we are going to grow and teach all our industry how to do, because something that inspired me a lot of this panel, this conversation today, is that there are challenges, a lot of challenges in every level of this industry. We might be behind in a lot of things, but you could be in another space, but there are a lot of challenges. It's always about connecting, holding space, and integrating. But more things in each level. So if I see Paraguay has a beautiful opportunity to grow something beautiful and healthy right from the beginning. We have the opportunity to forge it the way it has to be, because almost nothing is done, or very little compared to another countries.
Right.
So that's a precious opportunity.
Well, it's interesting because you're talking about
Women can lead it.
You're talking about an empty field, not like a full garden that you have to pull things out. You're talking about something that you're just preparing. You're preparing
Yeah,
something.
that's opportunity.
Uh-huh.
Definitely. Thank you, Teresa.
Valentina, what do you think? Who do you want to lift up? What do you want to nurture? What do you want to grow?
It's so inspiring to hear what Amanda says. I'm like, I don't think I have better words, but I'm trying to look at my own garden right now, in the sense that I'm trying to look very local right now, and I feel that that these conversations that we are having right now, probably just in Italy or maybe all around the world, I don't know, they are more held between cultural managers or cultural operators more than with artists. So I feel like that the female artists need to be empowered as well and should be involved more in this, because I really respect the role of the artists, because they put themselves out there like 100%. They're like the most vulnerable somehow, and they make themselves vulnerable. So if it's hard for us, we can say, maybe it's harder for them as well. So I don't know how I'm thinking out loud, right, in this moment. So I don't have an answer to that, but I feel that here it should be important to start doing this work as well, to kind of start creating a safe space for all the women in the creative industry, from being artists or cultural manager or artist manager or whatever that is, so that literally like we can get together and have our own space, because there are a lot of beautiful artists, amazing artists here in Turin or in Milan, but and maybe there are some underground collectives, we can say, but they're being very shy. Instead, we have to be very loud, because it's very powerful, the message that we're giving out, right? So yeah, I think I'd love to find a way to empower that. I don't know how.
Well,
so any suggestion is very open. I'm open to every suggestion, and you know, like seeing what's happening and the work that you are doing. You all are doing is really amazing, and I can see it's really hard, because then you take a lot of responsibility on yourself, and it's hard to bring it on, right? But so thank you very much. Yeah.
Does anybody want to jump off of what Valentina said? Laura, do you want to jump in now?
Yeah, I can. Thank you. And I agree with both of you. And first of all, something that we could nurture is the conversation like these ones, I think. You know, as Valentina says, it's like this moment of hearing you is already, you want to nurture these moments of a conversation, but also each of us, we're doing so different work by ourselves, but at the same time it's so resonating in so different contexts. So this kind of networks and these spaces is the ones that yeah, I agree with both of you in that way, like this importance of networking both locally and this kind of globally, like you say, in the pandemic, like this possibility of rethinking another way to working together through the digital world. That I agree, and something that I was thinking that people that, or organizations or talents that I want to lift up as yeah, as I mentioned, we're part of the Key Change initiative as a partner festival, but each year we have selected 72 talents as a part of our talent development program. So each year, these 72 talents, they're just amazing. Half of them they're artists, half of them they're innovators. Then if you have time to check the website, each of them they're fantastic. So just check them. It's from cultural producers to vocalists to instrumentalists. So they're, and also an organization that we always think that is amazing and we want to talk about them is Beirut and Beyond International Music Festival, that was founded at the 2013 at the beginning in partnership with Oslo World, but now they're independent. And it's a female-led festival in Lebanon that would be in these days in March in Lebanon. And it's this kind of festival that against all odds, they're bringing these amazing musicians from the Swana region, and it's with an amazing director, female. So yeah, check them. This is too.
Love it so much. So I love your call to action too for the viewers to check out, because an hour, it's not enough time. Check out Oslo World, check out their 72 artists, check out Beirut and Beyond, check out Keychain. There's so many things. If there's the ability to drop this in the chat, we will. Sonia Aviles, ¿a quién quieres levantar? ¿Qué quieres nutrir?
En esta segunda edición que sucederá en junio, el 1, 2 y 3 de junio, hay una dinámica muy esencial que es el construirnos como desde la esencia femenina y cómo esta ha sido una esencia que conecta, que construye y que une en distintas naciones y en distintos temas. En este sentido, también es darle un espacio muy especial a los pueblos de primeras naciones. Nuestro país y muchos países de América Latina cuentan con muchas lenguas originarias, con mucha producción musical y bueno, pues lamentablemente la parte de la profesionalización musical es como todavía un proceso en el que no puedes integrarte o integrar como al ritmo que sucede como a nivel de industria, sino tienes que hacerlo de una forma muy respetuosa porque hay usos y costumbres en los pueblos y bueno, esa esencia femenina es la que ayuda como también un poco a romper con esos patrones incluso de formas de construir la música y compartirla, porque los pueblos son mucho de compartir, pero comparten cuando tienen tu confianza, cuando no la tienen, se cierran. Entonces es como esa esencia que ayuda a romper barreras, no importando si eres hombre o mujer, y cómo esa esencia femenina también ayuda a, a conectarnos incluso con labores como hasta desde la casa, ¿no? O sea, desde que ya no nada más a ti como mujer lavas los platos, ¿no? Sino que a todos nos corresponden hacer tareas por igual. Y también un poco para sanar, ¿no? Esta segunda edición también va un poco a sanar humanamente todo lo que nos aqueja y que eso ayudará de alguna u otra forma a construir las cosas desde diferentes perspectivas, pero siempre no olvidando que lo que nos une en esta industria es la pasión y esa hace maravillas.
Gracias, Sonia. So beautiful. And so, what a rich answer. Very many things to reflect on there. Lifting up First Nations. It's the same here in Canada. We're doing a terrible job. Let's just say it around the world. We need to do better, all of us. And the fact that we're talking about that in this conversation makes me feel hopeful. Esperanza. Okay, Kristen, it's the last word to you. We got like 3 minutes left.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just think, echoing what every single other person here has said, I think everyone has touched upon things that I also would say in my answer, particularly the idea of bringing a new way of communicating and kind of like a new way of doing business. And I feel like the more women that we have, we can change what were considered to be the norms of how the music industry worked. And I find that really inspiring and hopeful and optimistic to think about. In terms of who I want to lift up in Toronto specifically, I think we need to see more Black women and more Indigenous women in curatorial and executive roles in musical organizations. We need to see succession plans in place for legacy organizations to be handing down and not just continuing. I know there are some organizations who are doing incredible things in that direction, but I think that needs to be kind of a common practice more than it is today, and something that we're looking forward to in our organization as well. And in terms of like a really specific, I love Key Change. I'm really glad that came up. But another festival that I really find inspiring and I love from Chile is La Matria. I was lucky to meet Martina in Womex, I think in 2018. And I just love what they're doing. I find it so inspiring. And I would love to see that model kind of popping up all over the world.
Wow. Listen, escúchame. This has been so amazing as a conversation. And I look forward to seeing you all again in the box, but also maybe in real life. It's coming. And yeah, I would encourage all of the viewers of today's panel, which is called Women in Music and the Arts, Mujeres del Mundo, Donne del Mundo, to check out these 5 amazing, inspiring thought leaders and movers and shakers. Connect with them via the app, via the online conference. Muchas gracias. Grazie. Merci beaucoup to Axé WorldFest and Global Toronto for presenting this conversation. We are so grateful. Gracias, Laura, Valentina, Amanda, Sonia, and Kristen. We will see you all down the road. Stay kind, everyone, and stay in community. Goodbye.
Anin Bojo, and welcome to Women in Music and Arts. And my name is Shoshona Kish. Jauj Kobanezekwe Desnikas, Migazi Dodem, Bachawana and Donjabao, Jibwe and Anishinaabe Kwe and Dao. I am Eagle Clan from a really beautiful place on the shores of Lake Superior called Bachawana, which means the place of the rapids. And I today am currently on Anishinaabe territory, otherwise known as Barrie, Ontario, and I'm really thrilled to be here with my friend and colleague, Iskwe. How's it going, Iskwe?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Shoshona?
I'm doing all right.
Okay, good.
I don't know if you have a way that you'd like to introduce yourself that's protocol or tradition, but of course.
Tanse ninao mawasis kwaneskwel kamamako kitsiwao. My name is Iskwe. I come from Treaty 1 territory. I was born and raised in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I am Cree and Métis, and my family comes from the territory from as long as time began on my mother's side. There we go.
Well, good. Yes, it's on my mother's side as well.
Right. You know, it's
patriarchy.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I love, we're really happy to be having this conversation. We actually haven't had a chance to chat that much through this strange pandemic time. And I'm really happy that we've chosen these backgrounds because I yeah, yours is a little strange. I don't 100%.
Like, why isn't anybody sitting in that chair?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a whole theater coming out to see you.
I know. This actually gave me some comfort because I miss being with people.
No, I do spend a lot of time alone. So this makes sense.
Yeah. we might change up the filters as we go, but we're easily amused. So I'm glad that I
might end up with a little mustache a little later.
Yes. Yeah. For the really serious questions.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm really happy just to be talking to you, and I feel like it's just really great to connect in this space. And I know that a lot of us are feeling, that longing for connection, and I think that there's something particular about that longing for connection with other women.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really glad that this gathering is happening, albeit virtually, and we all just do what we have to do, that really is focusing on those connections amongst women. And I thought maybe we would talk about that to begin with, why are these connections important to you? And what's nourishing and challenging about them? Like, can we talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah, I find that's an interesting thought that I don't spend enough qualified time thinking about, even though it's sort of ticking around in my brain all the time. And I say that because for me, my female friends have always been really important to me. And there's been pockets in my travels and in my life where I've been lacking in female friendships, and just based on like being somewhere new and like not having that access to a core group of people. And there is something really special about the bond and the shared experiences and so on that I think is really important, and important to honor, and important to honor in ourselves as individuals and then in those relationships. Because it's like, as an example, I'm going to go there right off the top. I remember not too long ago, like, hey guys, I'm 41 and I'm going through a new puberty. I don't know if other women are going through this as well, but I'm just going to say that this shit's happening to me again. And it's, and it's like, all of a sudden I was like, Mom, like, what's going on? And my mom was like, oh, like, that's a normal thing that happens, and menopause isn't for X number of years still, but blah, 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 and all of these cycles and yada, yada. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me this like however long ago, right? So there's something so integral and important, even down to the chemistry, that I think is a very beautiful, sacred thing, that we do need each other in order to say, like, am I going crazy, or is this actually all other things aside, like, to me, that's just like number one. I'm just like, okay, so now I've made it my mission to be like, listen, women's bodies go through puberty like 5 times in their lifetime, and it's okay and normal, and that's and powerful. Why does it have to be a secret?
Well, and I think that's one of the really interesting things is that because mainstream media and art and literature and academia has been dominated by male voices, the healthcare system
is geared towards male bodies.
The healthcare system don't even fully understand women's bodies at this stage in their research, because it has not been the focus.
Exactly.
And things like menopause, for instance, or childbirth are seen as something that requires an intervention and medication, and rather than like, this is what the body does. And so I find that, we still now in 2022 need to find other women to learn about those basic things.
And we have to learn about it together, because like, I don't know what, my mom has always been very open, right? Like, things about body and health and so on, sexuality, all of that. Like, we've had a very open door policy. And yet even still, I'm going to her and being like, what's up? And she's like, oh yeah. And I'm like, okay, but why didn't you tell me this before? Why did I have to think that something was wrong for however long, right? And I mean, this is the reason why these conversations are so important, because this is like our foundation. We understand each other in that foundation because our chemistry, our bodies are doing something similar. They might not all be happening at the exact same time, but like any of my girlfriends that I'm like, hey, have you guys had this? And they're like, they'll either be like, yeah, what's up? Or like, no, not exactly, but I've had this, so it's just, you go to your dude friends and, bless them. I love them tremendously, but they don't know anything about that. They don't know that, like ovulation hurts too, or, like all of these things, right? So, here we are, women in music and arts, and we're talking about, like ovulation and menopause, because like, why not?
Well, because it's part of our lives. It's part of our community. And I think,
it's a part of our sacredness.
I remember going to see Tanya Tagaq, or I was at the same festival as Tanya Tagaq. This is going back probably 15 years or something. And she got on stage that night and she talked about being on her moon time and how powerful she felt on the stage. Ooh, I
just got like, look, can you see my hairs all just went?
Yeah, just being on that stage in that creative, transcendent place, as she was in her power and bleeding as a woman, and she spoke about it. And it was really a transformative moment for me, because it's not that in my family and in my private spaces we didn't talk about that. Like, my mom and I were, also very open door policy about all things, but talking about it without any shame, like just without any sense of like, oh, that like ooh or whatever that, you know, all of the layers of things that have been put on top of that in this like powerful, beautiful, safe way. For me was like super revolutionary, you know. And I think that there's a power to us as women who are in these spaces and, you know, informed by one another's sort of creative processes and being inspired by one another. And it really can feed something really fundamentally shift, like some kind of fundamental shift, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I think all the young women in that audience felt a shift that night.
Right.
When Tanya was performing. Yeah.
And Tanya's so good at taking that or offering that sense of confidence as well, right? Like when she speaks about something, you're just like, you have no choice but to listen because she's very, her confidence and strength is so admirable. So in those moments, you're just like, great. Like I wasn't there, but I can only imagine the feeling that existed because it's just like, like way to say it for us.
Yeah. Courage, you know, because I'm sure that stuff as we know ourselves, that stuff all comes at a price.
Always.
So there's a like real courage involved. And like, I find that you are, when you're on stage, well, you as a person in life, but certainly when you step onto stage, you fully occupy that space. And it's as an observer, an audience, or a fan, like there's no doubt in that space for you. Can you talk about like how you come to the stage? What is that ceremony for you?
Absolutely. I often feel like when I get on stage, because in my private life, I'm very quiet. I'm very much a homebody, you know. I do like to socialize, but I enjoy socializing in small groups. Large crowds, you know, like stress me out. You know, all of, you know, like being at festivals, the only way I like to be at a festival is if I'm performing, because that way I can hide out backstage without all of the numbers. And, you know, and it's not because I don't like people, it's just that I find it really overwhelming. And yet somehow when I get on the stage, I think something else happens. I think I do feel a strong support from kind of like beyond anything that I could explain. And so when I go on stage, I don't feel that there exists the opportunity or the possibility or even the, you know, like it doesn't exist for me to be passive, or it doesn't exist for me to be shy or timid or anything. Like it's just not even it. I don't want to say that it's not an option. It's just not even like a possibility or something. Like it just, that spirit doesn't exist in me when I'm on stage. And I don't know where that comes from, because, you know, I definitely have used that opportunity to occupy that space and to be very upfront about thoughts and values and opinions and so on. And I don't feel any fear. I don't feel any apprehension. I don't feel anything like that. And then yet when I'm off stage, I'm always like, okay, you know, like really deeply thinking about anything that I might have to say and what, you know, where it might land, who it might land with, how I can make sure that the way I present it is done in a way that takes care of everybody or as many people as I can, and not alienating anybody or making anybody feel shitty, or, you know, like I'm always thinking about those things. So it's almost like the second I get on stage, all of that work has been done behind the scenes. So when I get up there, I'm just like, fuck it, here I am.
Yeah. And can we talk a little bit about this idea of taking care of your audience?
Yeah.
Like how much responsibility do you feel to care for them? Like, obviously this is something we all think about.
Yeah.
And how do you balance that with, like, I think some of the challenging things that you bring to the stage, both in like the content of your music, but also in the performance elements of it?
It's been a process, right? Like in terms of how I care, how I do my best to take care And then also that line between making sure that I'm being as thoughtful as I possibly can, and then having that line of like, fuck it, like this is also my art, this is also my being, this is also my spirit, my story, you know, like all of these sorts of things that has an equal place in this world just like anybody else's. And I think that there's a balance between those two footings, right, where it's a dance almost of like honoring myself and honoring my audience, honoring humanity, honoring community, honoring, you know, like all of the different ways that I would be honoring beyond my individual self. And it's, you know, I think for the way I look at it is I can be my best person, my best self every single day. And I actively am that. I'm actively my best self every single day. Doesn't mean that I'm perfect. It means that I am, with all of the lessons and all of the tools that I have in that moment, I'm making my best choices every single day. And I'm constantly learning, and I'm constantly growing, and I'm constantly observing, and all of these different things as well, so that, you know, we evolve as people every single day. Right. And I think that that's the important piece, is being okay with that in ourselves, that, you know, who I was a month ago, a year ago, 10 years ago, they're all different because they're not today. You know, and I think that's, for me, that's the balance, is honoring those lessons in ourselves, and at the same time being respectful of our own spirit. So like the audience, when it comes back to your question about audience and caring for myself, I'm always thinking of beyond me. I'm actually putting in practice to think more about myself, because in my craft, I've been so aware of, you know, community and family and friends and so on, that I've oftentimes sacrificed my own being. And so I'm now learning how to pay closer attention to my own need and my own, you know, heart and so on as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing for us to be talking about as women. Like, I think that, you know, women often, more than often, are taught to be in, you know, to put ourselves aside on behalf of, and fill in the blank, you know, and to be caregivers and nurturers. And I think that the caregiving and nurturing thing, if that is sort of part of your expression as a human being, is healthy and beautiful. And but what we're taught is that we need to do it at our own expense.
Exactly.
And I think that I think this is an important thing for us to be talking about. And, you know, I worry a little bit about some of the like self-love Instagram stuff, because I feel like maybe it's not, it feels like maybe it's not in the center of what that real issue is, like getting the best yoga gear and, you know, the best filter to, you know, present your self-love stand is, it just feels like a little off center. And so I'm thinking about this stuff a lot, you know, I'm thinking about like, what is the revolutionary space? And I had this notion of like, what is self-love? And I thought about like, do I love myself the way that I feel about my infant niece? That kind of powerful, protective love that I just want to.
Goosebumpies again.
Yeah. And do I love myself like that elder?
Yeah.
Because I know their voice matters. I know that they have a place of deserving of respect and care. And I really asked myself that seriously. And I was like, I don't think that I know what that means. I don't know that I know how to give that to myself. That kind of love, you know, and what is like the process to that? Oh, sorry. I was just like, what's the journey to that kind of true self-love?
Yeah, I don't even know it. You know, it's like when you're on the airplane and they say to put the mask on yourself first before you put the mask on your child, because
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to help your child if you've passed out, but they've got their mask on, or like the
Yeah.
oxygen mask, right? To me, it's kind of like that. It's like, there's such a balance of being able to make sure, like, especially in the line of work that you and I are in, and the type of conversations that we have in this line of work, and the fact that we're front people, right? Like we're front people, we are visible, we are representative, we are all of these things. So if we're not putting on our oxygen masks first, how are we supposed to help everybody? How are we supposed to continue, right? So it's like, it's such a tricky balance of not feeling guilty about putting that fucking oxygen mask on first, right? Because it's just like, when really in your lifetime, when do you put that mask on and feel like, okay, great, I'm so glad that I took care of myself and now I can do something good for somebody else. No, you're oh, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you. For myself, I immediately feel guilty. I immediately feel like, oh, like somebody's gonna get mad at me. I need to, like, sacrifice myself in every single way. And then it's just like, they get mad at you anyway, so fuck it.
Well, that's true. That is true. Well, and I think about like the emerging leadership, and amongst women in particular, but I think that it is straight across the board. And I think we've been modeled a type of leadership that requires great sacrifice to our own detriment. Like, and we take great pride in the 22-hour day, where, and we like, and, I think I ask my friends who are like real movers and shakers and, folks that I really admire, like, how are they? And the answer is always exhausted. And so I think that there is a new leadership that needs to, or a new approach to leadership that needs to emerge, that isn't also embracing this sort of like self-abuse to stand in that place, which seems to me another version of what we were talking about around giving at our own detriment.
Exactly. And like, how are we gauging the amount of work that we're doing? I really struggle with social media as an example. And bless my manager, she's always, like, really, really careful and caring of my being and my business and my art and all, like all of the elements of me, and is also very encouraging of me trying new platforms as a means to, like, building opportunity and building relationships with audiences and so on, right? And I recognize how important it is, but at the same time, like, I have this internal struggle where I'm just like, no more. Because when we're constantly participating in a open door policy to our lives, because that's what social media is, right? Like, yes, we can curate it however we want to, but we are still curating and giving the illusion that there's this entry point into our being. And to me, that's a very scary thing, because it's like, it's scary because it's so vulnerable, right? Even well curated, it's vulnerable. And it's scary because then there's this assumption of constant access. And there's this assumption that no matter what, I can say whatever I want to you because you are on social media. So when we're doing things like self-care and giving that open door policy into our self-care, it's such a vulnerable place that I'm like, well, is that actually taking care of us, or are we inadvertently damaging ourselves in those moments, right? Like, by anytime I see somebody posting their self-care work, my initial reaction is to be concerned for them. Right. And this is not a judgment in the sense of like, I'm not like, get that shit off the internet. No, this is 100% the opposite, where it's like, oof, okay, so if we're posting self-care, is that because we're taking care of ourselves? Or is it because we're
Mhm.
still looking for additional support, additional community care, additional family care, additional whatever it might be? And we're being
Mhm.
taught by social media that those two are one and the same. And my concern is that they're not, right? Like, this isn't
Yeah.
a statement of, you know, one is best and being offline is best. 100% I'm not being, you know, 100% in any which way. This is my
Mhm.
struggle. This is my mental like
Mhm.
process of like, okay, how do I care for myself? How do I care for ones that I see in social media? Blah 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 blah. Like, it just
Yeah.
continues on, and then again it comes right back to this oxygen mask, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, social media is increasingly a toxic place for so many people. Maybe everybody. I don't know. It certainly is for me.
yeah, 100% for me. I
Yeah.
try to stay off it as much as possible, to be totally
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah. Me too. I think it's effective for communicating things like email or something else.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've never developed a relationship where it felt like a creative outlet or a meaningful way to connect with community. Like, I am very much, you know, like boots on the ground kind of person.
Mhm.
So I think
What if
that
it's just like, is this generational? You know,
Mhm.
like, because I almost
Maybe.
feel artificial at the thought of building a social media, like, how to say, like, in my
Yeah.
mind, I'm just like, it doesn't feel right
Yeah.
to be like, to be on it as an individual. I'm just like, okay, you know, if marketing stuff goes up and tour dates and, you know, like those kinds of things, to me, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's a marketing tool.
Yeah.
But when it becomes
Yeah.
a personal tool, you know, then I'm just like, oof, this scares me.
Yeah. And I think that that's the requirement, like, to find a meaningful way to give of your person into that space.
Mhm.
And
And
yeah.
I'm like, I'm so old school, I guess. I'm like, isn't that what the stage is for?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you can get to know me as a person on stage.
Yeah.
And then we can have chats at the merch booth after, you know, like,
Mhm.
their fans have existed, audience has existed pre-social media. So what's I don't know. I'm
I
just like,
know.
apparently I was born in 1923.
Yeah. I'm
I'm
with
really
you.
struggling here.
I completely went down that rabbit hole for myself the other day because we're in a release cycle right now. And, you know, it's just like putting stuff out on the right, you know, more is kind of the,
Mhm.
you know, thing. And I was just like, it feels like the opposite of creativity for me. Like, it feels like the enemy of my creativity when I need to go into that space when I could be writing, I could be playing an instrument, I could be making some kind of mess,
Mhm.
you
You
know,
could be
as I'm
hanging out with your
exploring.
family,
I could be with my family, I could be cooking food, you know, and
right?
I could be walking
Yeah, totally. You could be a
and being
human.
outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've always felt like when I have to document you know, because people do all of those things online, but for
Yeah.
me, when I do it online, I feel like it pulls me out of the moment and makes me an observer in my own life. And I want to be just in those moments, you know? And maybe it's just because maybe it is, I'm sure it's generational to some extent, you know,
I think
at
so.
least.
You know, we're just a couple
Yeah.
of old ladies, Shoshona.
Yeah, apparently. Just griping about social media. Yeah, but I do find it challenging. And you know, like I really questioned whether, you know, in this conversation we wanted to have a conversation about get into like some of the toxicity in that space and how we can show up for each other in a place that feels so volatile.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I think virtually everyone I know now at this point has had some really negative experience about being attacked online. And it
Mm.
seems to be like especially vicious towards women. And there's not a lot of room for dialogue. It really is just like, you know,
Mhm.
one way, like things are sort of I don't know. I don't know the right words for it, but it doesn't feel constructive dialogue is possible in that place. And so how do we show up for each other in those spaces? Because we all have to be there on some level, you know?
Yeah. I don't think I have an answer. I think I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. And, you know, in preparation for this conversation, I was like, okay, how do I want to address this? Because I knew this topic would come up. And, you know, I think it's like, there's a few things. I'm going to ramble for a bit here. One of them is, so for those who don't know, I was attacked online a year ago. And I immediately was like on the phone with my lady counsel, you being one of them, right? And, you know, because you feel so vulnerable and you feel so hurt, because I felt so hurt because I felt like you know, to be attacked online, number one, your world starts to come apart. Even if it's a small group of people, which it was a very small number of people that were hurting me online. And even though it was a way bigger group of people who were on my side and standing up for me and, you know, like supporting me both online and offline, you feel this like the thread of your rope is unwinding, right? And you're like, oh, but then at the same time, you also feel like you're not allowed to say anything, right? And you know, when I say I had a counsel, my lady counsel, it was literally like I had my elders, my friends, my aunties, my family, you know, like I was like, what is going on? What do I do? What, you know, like you're panicking because it's like, it again, this social media provides people an access into your being that you didn't necessarily know you were granting them. Right? And then afterwards, how do you talk about it afterwards? Well, it's like, you don't want to say anything, because then if you say something, you're just fanning the fire again, and nothing feels safe. Right? So I don't know what that answer is on how we can take care of each other, because there's so many of, I'm going to say us, because like you said at the beginning of this topic, there's been so many of, you know, friends of mine who have experienced this type of attack online. And I remember in hindsight, like, oh, because this has spanned years, I remember in hindsight, a good friend of mine was attacked years ago for a culturally related concern. And it was vicious. Like they went for her in a very vicious way. And at the time, I definitely did not come to her support, because I don't know why. I don't know if I was afraid. I don't know if I felt I didn't have the authority to say anything. I have no idea why. And that sat with me ever since, you know. And then in this moment last year where I was being attacked, I spoke to another friend who told me that she experienced a similar type of online attack. Now these are all different, you know, like all of the ways and like the things people were coming for were different in all of these conversations. But again, I didn't even know that this person had experienced that, you know. And she was like, oh, this has fully traumatized me to the extent that I barely can go online. I can barely feel safe in any of these elements. And I was just like, fuck, man, like this shit is not okay, right? And the idea that we feel the need to get on our keyboards and write really mean things, even if there's a good conversation underneath it all, is being cloaked in cruelty. And that's the problem. And how we stand up for each other, I don't know, but I would love for us to feel the same, because it's just like, you know, it does seem like it gets directed at women much easier. And I'll use myself as an example. When I was being questioned for things online last year, a man spoke to a man and was like, hey, the questions that you have about Isque, you are partnered with somebody else who those questions could be asked of as well. Why are you not directing these conversations to everybody? Why are you focused on her? No answer. Right? But it took a man saying that. When I said it, no, it was just further, you know, like dig that hole deeper. Right? Yeah. So I'm just like, why is this okay? Right? And again, the conversations underneath it all could be very important and valuable conversations. That's not the question. It's how things are being handled, how we get online and we beat the shit out of each other and think it's reasonable and are like, we feel entitled to do that. And it's like, nah, step back, turn your computer off, get on the phone or go have a coffee, you know, like whatever it is. If it's somebody that you don't know, then find another way to interact with them if you can. In a human to human way, because, you know, like I said at the very start of the conversation, I don't know about you. I feel like it's going to be the same for you, but it's, you know, we're not the same as we were a year ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 41 years ago, you know, like that's the beauty of life, is that we grow and we evolve and we learn. You know? And if we can't support that in each other, that must mean we're not supporting that in ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And, you know, I really worry about like, because I do think that there are important conversations happening, or the thread or the heart of certain topics is really important for us to be talking about. 100%. Maybe all of them, maybe every single thing that we're talking about, we should be talking about. But to me, you know, particularly when we get into cultural conversations, you know, and these cultural identity conversations, like if we are not acting in accordance with our cultural teachings, which for me, like respect and kindness are at the center of it, then we negate everything that comes after. Like it becomes impossible to open a space for a dialogue and discourse that actually can forward us in where we want to go together, you know? And so I really worry about the cruelty.
Yeah, sorry, it paused and I thought, keep going.
Oh, I'm so worried about the cruelty being the status quo, like, and that's a power place. You know, I think it's really possible for us to have very hard conversations and put respect and kindness in the center of it, as we should in every conversation, in my opinion. Not that I do, but I try. I work really hard at that, you know? And because I think that that's where the potential lies.
Absolutely.
You know, and if we don't want something to come of the conversations, why are we having them?
Well, and I think that's the exact, you've hit it right there. Nobody, I'm going to be pretty confident in this statement. Nobody learns from being shamed. You learn to feel ashamed. Right? Nobody learns from being bullied. You learn to feel afraid. Right? So if we're wanting progress, if we're wanting to say like, listen, this thing that you've done has hurt me. I'm not going to learn that I hurt you by if I'm feeling attacked in it, because all I can focus on is this, all of the, you know, like all of the things that are floating around. Right? Nobody can. We're all going to feel that same. We're all going to like go into a shell or fight back. That's why we have fight or flight in our beings. This is what adrenaline does, right? Our chemicals are actually not designed to respond with clear thoughts in that time. Right. So if we want, and this is something that I've actively put into my practice since the beginning of me being an artist, is that if I want to convey a message to my audience, I'm not going to attack them. I'm not going to shame them into saying like, how do you not know this is what's happening to Indigenous people in Canada? How the fuck do you not know? Come on. How is that going to help? Who's going to listen to me? Nobody. Right? Like the way to reach each other is through that kindness. And like you said, it's not an easy thing to do either, I don't think. But it's definitely going to be more, you'll get better results. We get better results.
Yeah. And I'm interested in like where I can be effective.
Yeah.
You know, like I want results. I want to put my energy into places that I can actually be a part of something that is working, is moving, is reaching in that direction. And I increasingly like my self-care that I've been learning about recently is about applying myself where I can be effective and pulling out of places where I cannot.
Yeah.
And it's been it's at the beginning of that journey for me right now, but it is, you know, revolutionary.
Yeah.
I don't want to spin my wheels.
Well, no, exactly. And, you know, I don't know if you feel this way as well, but there's only so much one person is capable of doing in a day, in a lifetime. You know, we're not superheroes. We're not imperfect. We are imperfect. There we go. I'm like, that didn't sound right. You know, I'm not a superhero. I'm not perfect. I am not without errors. I am not the same person I was 10 years ago, you know, like all of these things. And that's okay because I'm learning from it. And, you know, learning is hard. As my dad's friend used to say, not another life lesson. But, you know, but that's what it is. And I think it's how to be effective. Well, I don't know. I can only speak for myself. And I think for me, I'm in a period of taking care of myself. You know, that's how I feel I can be more effective. A bit of a pause, a bit of a time where I'm listening differently. Yeah, I don't know.
Do you have some like practices that you've brought into your space in that self-care listening, like just shifting the rhythm of your relationship with yourself?
Yes, I'm
going to change my screen now.
Are you?
I feel like we're underutilizing these opportunities.
We are. Okay, I'm going to do a little shift as well. Choose video filter.
Because we've been pretty serious.
I think
this is the one that you really liked. Hang on, I'll abandon that one.
There. Oh yeah, that was a good one. Oh, I like that one too. I'm going to go with the mustache.
Oh, okay, yeah. There we go.
There we go. There we go. Okay.
Ooh la la.
Ooh la la. Yes, I definitely have spent much more time in quiet. I've spent much more time walking in quiet. I have spent a lot of time learning my physical reaction, my physical response to things. You know, and in full disclosure, full honesty, after last year, I went on antidepressants. I started antidepressants like, you know, basically 5 moments after that attack. And it was like, it was sort of the final straw for my mental health at that time. And these are the things that people don't see, right? Again, like the danger of social media is that we don't see the behind the scenes of what people are experiencing, so that when we go for it like that, we don't know how it's going to land, right? And so I've spent the last year on antidepressants and have just come back off of them. So I've been spending a lot of time paying attention to, physical ups and downs as I've been healing and as I've been on these medications. And then also now that I'm coming off of them, paying attention again, because it's like a new cycle, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, there's all kinds of elements. Like there's the physical, there's the emotional, there's the spiritual. There's different ways that I need to take care of myself and different ways that I'm spending time doing so. And talking about it has been a big one. So I think the people who are close in my life are kind of like, yeah, okay. Because I'm like, blah, 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 blah. This is what I'm feeling. This is what's going on. I'm noticing in myself. And they're like, great, write it.
Amazing.
But it's like, the honesty, I think, is a step one for me in it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that talking is really important. Witnessing and being witnessed is so important. And, my mom talks about relationality a lot. And, and she's like, relationships are at the center of life. Like, this is where everything happens, and relationships with ourselves, relationships with creation, with the water and the land, relationships with our loved ones or our community, or those that maybe are not even in our community. Like, this is where all the learning and movement happens. And so I just think conversations, even like what we're having right now, is so important, and I really look forward to doing it in person again.
We're so close. I mean, what is it? 4 more days and then mayhem.
Yeah, mayhem. I'm into it. Oh my God.
I totally agree.
I won't, let's talk a little bit about this past couple of years. And like, I know it's been such a hard, strange year, and we can't, there's no way to over exaggerate. There's no hyperbole in how weird it's been. Has it impacted your creativity?
It's in waves. Yeah, absolutely.
Like positively, negatively?
Side thing, I love that when your hand goes like this, it looks like it's flicking off your hat temporarily. Yeah. You're like, oh, I'm so glad I pinned it to my head so my hat doesn't fall. At the very start of the pandemic, I protested, and I was just like, I am not going to maximize this opportunity and create. I'm gonna, take a break. And I'm going to stay at home, and I'm going to hang out with my family, and I'm going to read and meditate and all of this stuff. And like, really, I stayed at home and hung out with my family. Like all of the other things, all of the other, productive pieces, I was like, oof, my brain had just sort of went, and then a little over a year ago, I went on a journey to Mexico for 3 weeks. And I was looking, an old love of mine had popped back up, and we had made a promise 7 years earlier that we would find each other someday in life, and we would meet in Mexico, and, like straight out of a, rom-com, which is my favorite genre of film. And that's what we did. We went to Mexico, and it was just like, toof, and my being opened up. And from there, I was supposed to go to Los Angeles because I was now at that time starting to work on an album again, and I was just kind of like slowly getting back into it. And I was on on a Zoom with my producer, who I was supposed to be heading to Los Angeles to go and work on 2 songs that I'd already written, and the possibility of starting a third together. And when I was explaining Mexico to him, he was just like, I want whatever you've got, because I was I had a spark of life. It had been a year and a half of nothing. Like I spent like 7 months by myself in my apartment with an 8 p.m. curfew because the city I was in, we were not allowed to leave our homes between 8 and 5 in the morning, 8 p.m. and 5 in the morning. And I had one friend that I was in who I was my bubble. So for 6 months, I saw one person between the hours of 5 in the morning and 8 p.m. Right. And so it was like my creativity was non-existent because my spirit was barely surviving. You know, then I came here, had those 3 weeks of sun and love, and told him, my producer, about it. And he's like, I want in. So we wound up coming back to Mexico, and the 2 songs wound up being an entire album. So it went from like a year and a half of nothing and, you know, like literally nothing, to an album being written and recorded in a month and a half.
In Mexico.
In Mexico.
Love it. Yeah, beautiful.
Thanks.
Well,
yeah,
you know, I'm so glad to hear that. I haven't had that experience so much, but I really shifted my focus to community work over the course of this pandemic. And I was already kind of,
you've always been so integral in that.
Yeah, I think I was always sort of balancing those things, but it really just did this huge, like, in one direction.
Right.
So, and just now I'm starting to feel like that sort of self-directed creativity returning, which is great. And I, you know, and it is, you know, the dead of winter. It's the Maquagizis right now. I guess, I don't know if this is going to be broadcast in Maquagizis, but, you know, it's the storytelling time right now.
Right. Yeah.
So it feels very aligned for me, but I'm thinking as things begin to open, and hopefully it sticks this time, you know, that things are going to change again. And what are your thoughts? What do you want to see happen for you in this opening? And maybe a little bit about, like, what do you see happening in a community sense in this opening? What are you wishing for right now? Dreaming about?
I'm fully honest. My mental space is occupied by what's happening in the Ukraine. And the potential for what this means for Europe and for North America and globally. And so I'm full disclosure, I'm struggling with allowing myself to lead a normal life at the moment, when I'm, you know, concerned about where we're heading as a planet, as people, you know, in addition to what we're doing to the planet, but as humans, where things are going right now, I'm feeling quite concerned. So I don't know how to answer that with any kind of hope or positivity, because I think it's you know, especially right now, again, you know, for folks who are watching, this conversation is pre-taped, it's virtual. And at this time that this conversation is happening, the things in the situation in the Ukraine is just beginning to erupt.
Since yesterday.
Since yesterday.
Well, yeah, the invasion began
yesterday. Yeah. So where it'll be in a month when this airs, I don't know. Maybe, you know, maybe by that point things will have settled, hopefully, doubtful, but I don't know how to be, you know, if I'm fully honest, I don't know how to be thinking about brighter days for right now. You know, and it's like, yes, the pandemic is seemingly coming to an end, provided we don't end up with a new variant that brings us back into it.
Yeah.
Who knows? But again, like I said, it's a spooky time, and I feel spooked. I feel uncomfortable and nervous and all of those things.
Well, we've just come out of, I don't know, excuse me. We've just sort of seen some, at least initial resolve to the occupation in Ottawa from the so-called Freedom Convoy. That's only a few days sort of post-occupation now. And you know, you and I, I'm sure, are watching what's happening in Wet'suwet'en, and like just a number of like very heavy, troubling things. And of course, what's happening in the Ukraine. And, you know, I guess for me, I'm hoping that the opening up of the restrictions we've all been living in will help us find each other in the ways that come most naturally to us, and then perhaps stimulate some like healing energy, or, you know, brilliant problem solving, and like that is my hope. You know, I hope that it sort of causes this rush of creativity because these connections are being made in the way that we're built for. You know, and I think we've been really innovative about finding connections in all sorts of other ways, but we're built to sit in a room together. We're built to hug one another. We're built to, you know, let somebody catch your eye across the room because of whatever the je ne sais quoi that pulls people together, which I feel like is just the universe sort of instructing us in some way.
Don't you miss those moments? I miss those moments of like, something about you has intrigued something in me for whatever, you know, in whichever realm of relationship. And
then maybe it just turns into a brief conversation, and nothing more. Like that was the whole point of that coming together.
Sparks.
Sometimes it becomes a lifelong friendship, or some love, you know, a place of finding real love and nourishment. And sometimes it's like, ooh, this person is the person I need to make all of this beautiful community stuff happen, or whatever. Make music or love, all of the things.
I just realized we're matching.
Oh, we are matching.
We're so coordinated. Even your beret matches my little mustache.
Well, and I noticed we're both wearing the big clunky rings. Does this piece have a story?
Yeah, this was made by Amber Morningstar. It is caribou antler.
Ooh.
And she uses materials. I don't know that she's making jewelry anymore. She had gone to law school. And so I think she at the time, this was years ago that I got this from her, but she used fallen materials, and she would trade with different artisans. So as an example, I have a pair of earrings that are African porcupine quill. And so she would trade materials with artists from different territories in exchange so that they could be creating pieces naturally.
Amazing.
So that's the story. Amber Morningstar, the brilliant artist and lawyer.
Amazing. Well, I'll talk about my earrings. I just got them today. I'm so excited. This is birch bark. And these are from the handle on Instagram is Only Child. And I just really have so much respect for her in the way that she sort of holds space and community around care for one another, and also, you know, like what's happening on the front lines. But her work, she's like so talented. So Only Child.
Only Child. They're beautiful. I will have to get there.
And they're really light, which is, you know, the big earring thing.
The
birch bark.
And is it a bead? The black in the middle is beaded?
No, the beads are like around here, like this outer of the flower, and then this is the felt.
Oh, it's the felt.
Velvet.
Cool. Okay.
Backing.
Gorgeous.
It could be tufting. It looks like tufting on the but anyways.
Cool.
This is what I love about Instagram.
Yes. See?
Yeah.
Marketing product, marketing, you know, genius. Fantastic. Love it.
Well, and finding people who are working in community and like really
I see what you're saying.
I mean, not just for like shopping
brand development. I'm like, I use it for shopping. I found this on Instagram.
Well, I buy almost all
from plastic bottle.
It's like going to a powwow, like the crafts at the powwow. When we can't get to the powwow, that's what Instagram is like for me right now.
100%.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
I also love going on Instagram, and like I do love looking at people's backgrounds. So it's like when they post something, I'm like, oh, but where are you? Like, are you in your living room? What kind of couch do you have? I'm really into like decor-y kind of stuff. So I find Instagram peaceful for that.
Yeah. It's
like, I love
the
the artwork.
voyeuristic.
Yeah, totally. I'm just, you know, like when you walk down the street and you look in people's windows at night when they leave their curtains open and have their lights on, like not at their window, but walking down the street. I promise I don't like go up to people's windows and peer.
Not often.
Not
anyway.
often.
I just realized that your mustache also has teeth.
It is teeth?
Doesn't it? I think
Oh,
so.
those are just my teeth.
Oh. No, I think when you back up, it does a thing. Anyways, your teeth are gorgeous.
Thank you. I also love that your beret gives you a little mole right here, or freckle. Lean forward.
Yeah.
There it is. See? Yeah.
Right here.
Oh,
we're so funny.
How quaint.
I like this one too. The reason this is happening today is that I didn't realize that this existed on Zoom.
Yeah.
I'm like late to the game, late to the party, but we think this is very amusing. I think there was a reindeer one that I really liked, but I'm so glad that we've had this time to chat. I think it would be really great if before we go, you could just share a little bit about what your hopes are for future generations. And you know, and I think for us in this conversation, I'm really thinking about the young women coming up, and or those who are not identifying as men, like the young women and non-binary folks that are coming up, that, you know, what do we wish for them as aunties, and what advice would you give to them? What do you want them to have in their bundle from this conversation?
Well, hold on.
I think it's hilarious that I'm asking these like serious
there we go.
questions with this. We just need new things to make
sure that I had the right headband to answer this question.
Oh, great.
You know, to be totally honest, I feel like my wish and hopes for them are that I get to continue learning from them, because I think that what's happened and is happening is that, you know, like every generation that comes up after, they've watched they've watched us, right? All of the things that work, that don't work. And I feel really inspired by their kindness. I feel really inspired by their passion for being better than us, you know, as in their hearts and their spirits. And I don't mean that we suck. I just mean like, you know, the things that they're learning from us, which I'm sure, I mean, like I learned from my aunties and my mom's generation as well, changes that I made in my life. I'm so inspired by the changes that they're making in theirs, that my hope and dream for them is that continues to flourish, right? So that we as the older generations can learn from them. Because I think they, you know, from what I see so far, the younger generations are slaying it. I'm really proud of them. I'm really inspired by them. And you know, it's new for me to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not, you know, I don't know if this happened for you, but there was like a moment in time not too long ago where, true story, I met a man. He had a 20-year-old child, and I was like, okay, I can't date you. I'm the same age as your child. And then I'm like, oh no. I literally could be this child's mother with lots of room, right? Age-wise.
Yeah.
And so it was like this epiphany where I was like, oh, I'm not in my 20s.
Yeah. I'm not a youth anymore.
I'm not a youth.
Yeah.
And in that moment, there became this, like, the door opened and I was like, okay, this is amazing. This is amazing because I get to admire these younger ones now. And I get to enter into a new stage of my life with comfort and ease and, you know, challenges and all of those things, but I get to learn from them. So to answer your question in a very long-winded answer, I hope that they continue to be better because they're being awesome already. And I find that really empowering and encouraging and inspiring.
Yeah. And you know, they are our greatest teachers.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really think that. And I guess I wish most that they won't have to fight the way we have.
Yeah.
And certainly that if they, and you know, they will have to.
In their ways. Right?
In their way. I hope that they don't have to fight for the exact same things that we've been fighting for. I hope that they get to fight for something new.
Yeah. And I also hope they don't fight each other in the way we've been fighting each other.
Yeah.
I hope that they, you know, continue. And it seems to be the case where they have much more understanding of the beauty of what makes us different than our generation did. You know, we're still unlearning a lot of from what came before us, which is a beautiful thing, right? Like all of these pieces are fantastic tools and experiences, and you know, life isn't going to be easy. So to assume that it will at any point, I think is not going to be helpful. But I do hope that they continue to, you know, that they don't fight each other the way we have.
Yeah. I think that wish for the future is worth continuing to really work for. You know, and it's not going to happen by itself. There's a healing that needs to happen. But, you know, and we've been doing a lot of healing work, but there's more, you know, and I think that that's very much true of the Indigenous community, but it is also true amongst women.
Agreed.
Yeah, like a great healing.
Yeah.
And so that, and I think that, you know, the work of artists is really important in that. So I really want to thank you for the work that you're doing.
Likewise.
And I'm really happy that I'm going to get to see you perform, albeit virtually. Or no, this is a live performance you're doing at Access, right?
It is.
Yeah. I don't get to see it then. Well, anyways, we will find each other soon. And I want to say Chinigwech for taking the time to talk with me. I loved talking with you.
Likewise.
When do we get to hear this new record?
Very good question. I don't know.
Okay.
It's all done.
And
yeah, it's all done. We're now at the stage of like trying to find label partners and, you know, all of the fun business side of it. The creative is done. It's in a nice little package with a good bow. I'm very excited to share it with you. It's entirely my story, this record. So it's very personal. It's very intimate, and it's rocking. And I can't wait.
I can't wait either. Amazing. Okay, well,
my friend,
I love this. Be great, and we'll talk soon.
Likewise.
And thank you all for joining us.
Yes. And thank you for being a part of our, you know, various identities.
Yes. Thank you for journeying through that with us.
Exactly. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you for participating in the Women in Music and Arts Conference. If you are in Ottawa, we would love to see you tonight at the National Arts Centre as we continue with our conference, showcasing Zaki Ibrahim, Isque, and Turquoise. We would like to thank our co-presenters TD London Sunfest, Global Toronto, and Small World Music, as well as the International Indigenous Music Summit. Furthermore, we would like to thank our funders, the City of Ottawa, Factor, Ontario Arts Council, and Ontario Creates. A bientôt!